This is MHS Talks Education, the second annual Black School Psych Summit 2024. MHS recently attended the second annual Black School Psychologist Summit. Trends and themes of the convention focus on ways to energize and share knowledge within the community of Black School psychologists. Dr. Janise Parker, an associate professor at William & Mary, spoke at the conference about healing and restoring communities and shared her experience on being an out-of-the-box school psychologist.
I talked about the importance and the value, if you will, of school psychologists working with communities and collaborating with communities, especially community organizations of color, particularly in this case, those that serve a majority group of Black families, Black children, to bring resources together to figure out ways that we can serve Black children in a holistic way.
Dr. Parker shared strategies on how school psychologists can amplify within their sphere of influence.
I have found that it is helpful to start small, kind of like I amplified in the talk today, finding ways to work within your sphere of influence. And so maybe you're sitting at a problem-solving team meeting and you can amplify and highlight the importance of community work. Maybe you're a school psychologist and you're working on a one-to-one capacity with a child and you're intentional about probing about whether there are community resources surrounding the area. Might you integrate that with your recommendations? So really finding ways to slowly integrate the attention that we give to community-based work, and then, kind of gradually, I guess you can say, pushing a little more over time in terms of not just talking about it, maybe not just amplifying the importance of community-based work, but then how can we actually integrate it? What does that look like from an intervention standpoint? I do consider myself to be an unconventional school psychologist. I am out of the box school psychologist, and I know this journey in getting here has not always been easy. And so I do hope that there is something that I say that might inspire someone in the room, particularly if you are interested or if you have a vision to do something that is untraditional and yet you can't shake that feeling.
Dr. Parker sees firsthand just how important community is when working in these spaces and how it really makes a difference in the lives of students.
I just think about the number, almost kind of countless articles, research, even personal lived experience where Black youth have talked about in depth the experience that they felt, the sense of affirmation, the love, the support, the accessibility to resources, right, knowledge and so forth that really came with being immersed at community-based organizations. And I think that has really inspired and moved me because the kids are telling us, right, that this is a place where I feel whole, where I feel seen, and I absolutely love it. And so how do we meet them where they are? By working with those communities, those spaces that are so dear to their hearts and their overall development.
Dr. Parker focused on meeting people where they are to learn from them to provide better support.
They make all of these assumptions instead of meeting people where they are, talking to them, learning from them, letting them teach us, right, through our observations and our humility. So I think that would be the biggest takeaway that I would convey to others is don't count certain community organizations and groups out, and instead be intentional about finding the resources, finding the positives, and work together to build upon those resources.
Learn more about Dr. Parker and her work by checking out the links below. For more information on the Black School Psychologist Network, visit bspninc.com. Stay tuned for more videos in this MHS Talks Education series. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at MHS for more.